Hello and welcome. Take a moment to get comfortable. Let your shoulders soften, your jaw unclench, and your breath ease into a slower rhythm. This is your time. A quiet space just for you. If you like, close your eyes and imagine the gentle scent of fresh linen, the warmth of soft fabric against your skin, the hush of twilight settling in. There's no rush here, just stillness. Tonight we'll drift across time, through Roman bathhouses and Egyptian riverbanks, through stone monasteries and prairie homesteads, following the quiet rhythm of laundry as it was once done by hand, with care and patience. This is the laundry of history, a slow, soothing journey through centuries of washing, rinsing, folding, and remembering. So, snuggle in. Let the noise of the day melt away, and as your thoughts quiet, we'll begin, where all stories of laundry begin, with water, fabric, and a pair of steady hands. The Laundry of History. Chapter 1. The Ancient World, Rome, Egypt, Mesopotamia. Long before the hum of washing machines and the scent of floral detergent filled our homes, people still had to reckon with one universal truth. Clothes get dirty. Whether woven from wool, linen, or plant fibers, garments collected the sweat, dust, and soot of everyday life, and someone, always someone, had to wash them. Let's begin this slow journey with the ancient world, where the washing of clothes, far from being mundane, was ritualized, communal, even sacred. Ancient Rome, the Phalanca, in the bustling heart of a Roman city, tucked behind the stone arches of a market street, was the Phalanca, Rome's ancient answer to a laundromat. Here, in shallow stone basins known as fulling vats, laundry was more than a chore. It was a business, a craft. Picture it: the early morning sun rising over terracotta rooftops, casting soft shadows across the dusty street. Inside the Phalanca, men known as Fulanese stand ankle-deep in vats filled with water, clay, and human urine. Yes, urine, collected daily from chamber pots and public urinals, was prized for its ammonia, a powerful natural cleanser. With bare feet, the Fulones tread rhythmically upon tunics and togas, pressing the mixture into the fibers. The sound is a gentle splash-slosh, like waves in a tide pool. The garments are later rinsed, brushed, and laid out to dry on terraced rooftops. Many Phalanaki even included rooftop drying areas and pressing tables. Clothes might be sprinkled with sulfur and sealed in a small, heated room to whiten them, a kind of ancient dry cleaning. The Phalones were more than just launderers. They were artisans. The whitening of garments, a symbol of Roman virtue, depended on their skill. The job was hard, odorous, and low status, yet essential. So essential, in fact, that the Emperor Vespasian famously taxed the collection of urine. When his son Titus protested, Vespasian held a coin to his nose and said, "Pecunia non olet," money does not stink. Ancient Egypt, the sacred wash. Travel now to the banks of the Nile, where the linen garments of ancient Egyptians are draped gently over flat stones. Linen, spun from flax and considered sacred, was the most common textile, and cleanliness held spiritual weight. Washing clothes in ancient Egypt was often done by women, kneeling at the water's edge, scrubbing garments with smooth stones or rubbing them between their hands. The river itself, cool and slow-moving, did most of the rinsing. In temple complexes, special laundresses tended the linen of priests and royalty. These garments weren't just worn, they were offerings to the gods. Some temple texts even include prayers recited during laundering, making it a spiritual act. Soap, as we know it, did not exist yet. Instead, they used alkaline natron, a type of salt found along the riverbanks, to help remove oils and dirt. Sometimes they mixed natron with ash or clay. After washing, clothes were spread out on warm rocks to dry. The air was dry and forgiving. The sun did the rest. There's a peaceful rhythm here. Bend, scrub, rinse, lay out, and wait. Ancient Mesopotamia, soap's humble birth. In the cradle of civilization, between the Tigris and Euphrates, laundry was less a profession and more a household duty. Here, in the early cities of Mesopotamia, the first known recipes for soap were etched into clay tablets, not exactly the sweet-scented bars of today. This was utilitarian soap, made by boiling animal fat with water and ashes. It created a kind of crude detergent that lifted grease from wool cloaks and tunics. Clothing was soaked in basins, stirred by hand or wooden stick, and then rinsed in clean water. Though the process wasn't glamorous, it was foundational. These early soap recipes laid the groundwork for chemistry and for generations of washerwomen and men to come. In wealthier households, servants did the washing. In the countryside, it fell to mothers and daughters. But regardless of status, laundry happened in courtyards, beside wells, or along stream banks, always guided by the same methodical motions. Scrub, rinse, wring, dry. The universal motion. Across these three ancient civilizations, Rome, Egypt, Mesopotamia, there are patterns, not just of labor, but of life. Laundry was repetitive, meditative, physical, but also full of care. It was often a communal act. Women washed together, children fetched water, stories were told while garments dried, and above all, it was quiet. No whirring, no cycles, just the sound of water lapping, cloth slapping stone, and the soft wind lifting a drying tunic skyward. Closing the chapter. The ancient world did not see laundry as a nuisance. It was woven into the fabric of daily life. A task done slowly, with hands and water, under open skies. In the next chapter, we'll move to medieval villages and monasteries, where wash day became both a communal gathering and a silent ritual. But for now, let us pause and imagine the scent of sun-dried linen, the steady rhythm of scrubbing, the soft hush of the past. Sleep well, traveler. Chapter 2. The Middle Ages, Villages and Monasteries. As we move gently forward through time, the sun sets on the classical world and rises again over the clustered rooftops of medieval Europe. Stone churches rise above humble cottages. Fields of wheat ripple with the wind. And tucked into the folds of these landscapes are scenes of water, stone, and linen, where laundry was done with the same grace and grit as prayer or plow. Welcome to the Middle Ages. The village wash day. In most medieval villages, homes were small and poorly ventilated. Chimneys were a luxury. Smoke darkened ceilings and daily garments were prone to absorbing the grit of rural life. Laundry was not an everyday affair. It was laborious and time-consuming. Most people owned only one or two changes of clothing, and fabric was too precious to wash carelessly. Wash day was often a communal affair, timed to the moon or the weather, sometimes weekly, sometimes less. Women, always women, would gather at the lavoir, a communal washhouse found near streams or springs. Lavoirs were simple structures, some just open stones by the river, others sheltered under wooden beams. A series of sloped basins allowed water to run from one level to the next. Women knelt on padded knees or low stools, their sleeves rolled high. The cold water numbed their fingers, but they worked in rhythm. Soak, soap, scrub, rinse, wring. Wooden paddles, called beetles, were used to beat the garments, raising dust and dirt from the fibers. Lye soap, made from ash and animal fat, was rubbed into the cloth. It burned raw skin but stripped away grease and sweat. And yet, for all its discomfort, there was connection. Voices carried across the water, children splashed, women gossiped or sang. The lavoir was not just for labor, it was a gathering place, a public square of steam and story. After washing, clothes were wrung by hand and draped over hedgerows, bushes, or wooden frames to dry. The monastic laundry, silence and order. Meanwhile, behind high stone walls, monks and nuns lived in silence. Monastic life was rigid, structured by bells and prayers, but it also included work, manual labor seen as a path to humility and devotion. Laundry was no exception. Within the cloisters, a small building near the garden or water source was reserved for washing. Here, monks would scrub their simple wool robes with cold spring water, often using a kind of fuller's earth, a type of absorbent clay. No talking, just the soft splash of cloth and water. Robes were not washed often, but when they were, the act was contemplative, a form of spiritual purification. To wash one's garment was to cleanse the soul. Nuns, too, managed laundry for their sisters and for priests. They stitched, patched, and scrubbed silently in the service of God. Drying lines ran between apple trees, garments swayed like flags of surrender, white, brown, and gray against stone walls. Tools of the time. Medieval laundry tools were basic but enduring. Beetles, or laundry bats, flat paddles used to beat clothes against stones or boards. Soap, coarse, lye-based, harsh on the skin, often handmade in kitchens from leftover grease and wood ash. Rinsing tubs, carved wooden barrels or hollowed troughs. Bluing agents. Rare, but sometimes elderberry or chalk was used to whiten linen. Clothing was rarely boiled. That required too much fuel. Instead, soaking and repetition were key. People also relied on the sun as a natural bleach. The longer cloth sat in the light, the brighter it became. Superstition and symbolism. In the Middle Ages, cleanliness had layers of meaning. Physical cleanliness was tied to moral purity, but excessive washing was seen as vain or even suspicious. Some believed too much contact with water weakened the body. Still, linens had to be washed. Underthings, sheets, altar cloths, baptismal gowns. In folklore, laundry was linked to spirits. It was said that seeing a woman washing clothes at night could be an omen, a washerwoman of death, cleansing the burial garments of someone yet to pass. In rural France, the lavandières de nuit, ghostly washerwomen, were feared. To interrupt them was bad luck, to help them was fatal, so laundry carried stories, myths, power. Inside the manor, wealthier households had their own washerwomen, servants who worked in the shadows of the manor. Laundry was done in a wash house or courtyard. Clothes were sorted by fabric and status. Fine linens required more care. Stains were pre-treated with bread, vinegar, or even wine. Some manors had laundry calendars, set days in spring or autumn where the entire estate's linens were washed, aired, and inventoried. Washerwomen bent over steaming tubs, red-faced from the heat, their hands raw. Though unseen by nobles, their labor was the foundation of domestic order. The rhythm of the wash. Despite its challenges, medieval laundry had its own rhythm. It fit into the cycle of rural life, planting, harvest, spinning, mending, washing. There was a patience to it, a gentleness. Clothing was cherished, mended again and again. Washing was done not in haste, but with deliberation. And when it was done, when the last piece was hung to dry, there was a quiet satisfaction, a clean slate, a fresh start. Closing the chapter. In Middle Ages, laundry was not simply a domestic task, it was woven into faith, folklore, and community. From the village lavoir to the silent monastery, the washing of clothes was a ceremony of care, done with hands weathered by time and hearts grounded in routine. In our next chapter, we'll enter the elegant but soapy world of Tudor and Georgian laundry, where ruffs were starched and lavender lingered in lace. But for now, rest in the quiet, and picture the sun breaking through trees, warming a line of fresh linen in a medieval garden. Sleep well. Chapter 3. Early Modern Europe, Tudor to Georgian. The Middle Ages slowly gave way to the dawn of modernity. With it came refinement, class hierarchy, and more fabric. More lace, more layers, more laundry. This was the age of ruffs and shifts, chemises and corsets, of powdered wigs and perfumed petticoats. And beneath it all, the humble act of laundering persisted, now hidden behind manor walls and servants' quarters. Let us step softly into the Tudor and Georgian eras, where laundry became both necessity and performance. The Tudor era, soap, boiling, and boasting. It's a chilly spring morning in Tudor England. Inside a small manor, smoke curls from the chimney of the wash house. The weekly laundry ritual has begun. Tudor clothing was complex. Layers of linen worn beneath wool or silk. The underlayers absorbed sweat and body oils, shielding the expensive outer garments. So the focus of laundry was on these base layers: shirts, shifts, aprons, and hose. The process was grueling. First, garments were sorted, whites from coloreds, fine linen from coarse. Next came the soak. Clothes were steeped in large wooden tubs filled with lye, a caustic mixture of water and wood ash. The longer they soaked, the better the clean. But lye burned, so washerwomen used wooden paddles to stir the mix. After soaking, garments were scrubbed against boards or on stone, then lifted into a large cauldron suspended over an open fire. Boiling not only cleaned but sanitized. A heavy stick, sometimes forked, was used to agitate the linens as they bubbled. Once removed from the pot, clothes were rinsed, often multiple times, to remove soap and ash. Finally, they were wrung by hand, or through a simple roller press, and hung to dry. In larger households, drying took place indoors on racks or in warm lofts. For commoners, hedges and lines sufficed. Laundry day was an all-day affair, but for those of means, the task was invisible, carried out by servants, laundresses, or traveling washerwomen. And for royalty, the process was ceremonial. At Henry VIII's court, linen was marked with royal insignia, catalogued and cared for with military precision. Clean linens, after all, meant status. The Georgian era, elegance, and etiquette. By the 18th century, society had become obsessed with appearance. Cleanliness wasn't just a virtue, it was a performance. The Georgian period introduced the concept of smell as morality. A perfumed handkerchief implied cleanliness. A crisp white cravat suggested self-control. Laundering became a science of finesse. Fine linens were soaked in milk to soften the fibers. Garments were blued, treated with a wash of indigo or powdered smalt to counteract yellowing. Starch was applied to collars, cuffs, and caps for stiffness and flare. After washing, lace and delicate fabrics were pinned out to dry on special frames. This kept the shape crisp and the weave intact. Ironing was a delicate art. Flat irons were heated on stoves, then applied through layers of cloth to prevent scorching. Some irons were filled with coals or fitted with removable hot plates. Laundresses of this era were judged on their ability to press a ruffle without a crease. Tools of refinement. Wash coppers. Metal kettles used for boiling laundry over fires. box mangles, early machines that pressed linen under heavy rollers, starch and bluing, essential for bright whites and crisp finishes, ironing boards, flat wooden planks or padded tables for pressing. New soap formulas emerged, some scented with lavender, rose, or citrus oils. Soap was now molded into bars and wrapped in cloth. The aroma of clean shifted from ash to floral. Voices of the servants. In the back rooms of Georgian homes, the servants worked in rhythm. Laundry was Monday's task. Ironing came Tuesday, folding and mending on Wednesday. Many laundresses lived in or visited once a week. Their labor was invisible to the drawing rooms and parlors upstairs. Yet they were trusted. Handling undergarments and fine linens required discretion and skill. Letters and journals from the time reveal quiet respect and sometimes deep gratitude for a laundress who never scorched lace or lost a sleeve. Public perception and hygiene. While upper classes embraced powdered wigs and silks, cleanliness remained out of reach for many. Urban poor still struggled with water access and soap. Public wash houses existed in some cities, but many washed in rivers or communal yards. Hygiene beliefs varied. Some still feared water on the skin, preferring to wash linen instead of bodies. But gradually, a cultural shift was underway. Clean linen became synonymous with virtue, and with that came more laundry. The melody of method. Despite the elegance of the era, laundry still echoed with effort. The hiss of boiling water, the squeak of a mangle, the rhythmic creak of a washboard, and in that repetition, there was familiarity, care. Laundresses knew each hem, each tear, each stubborn stain. Their hands preserved dignity, one clean garment at a time. Closing the chapter. In early modern Europe, laundry became layered with meaning. It was a marker of status, a ritual of refinement, a whisper of identity. Whether boiled in a copper pot or pressed on padded boards, each garment told a story, not just of who wore it, but who washed it. In the next chapter, we'll enter the steam-filled world of the Victorians, where laundry became mechanized, gendered, and industrial. But for now, let the starch settle. And imagine the warmth of fresh linen folded at dusk. Sleep well. Chapter 4. The Victorian Era. Labor, Steam, and Class. As we turn the page to the 19th century, the world is changing. The Industrial Revolution hums in the distance. Cities swell, chimneys rise, trains thunder through once quiet fields. But even as machines reshape society, one thing remains steadfastly human: the laundry. In the Victorian era, laundering was not just a domestic duty. It was a symbol of gender roles, class divisions, and the march of mechanization. Let us step into the steam and explore how washing became a full-time profession. The domestic wash house. In a middle-class Victorian home, Monday was sacred, wash day. At dawn, fires were lit under copper boilers. Water, hauled by hand, was heated until it roared with steam. The laundry room, often a separate building or a kitchen corner, filled with heat and motion. Garments were soaked in soapy water, agitated with a wooden dolly or posher. These tools looked like plungers with handles, used to pummel the clothes and lift dirt. The soap? Homemade or store-bought, now sold in bars. Fells naphtha, sunlight pears. Some included pine tar or carbolic acid. Washboards were ribbed with glass or metal. They scraped against fabric as knuckles bled and arms tired. Once clean, garments were fed through a mangle, 2 rollers turned by a crank. The pressure squeezed out water, flattening the cloth. Then came hanging, on lines, on drying racks, over radiators, indoors in winter, out in the smoky air of cities in spring. Each family had their own rituals, their own scents, their own secrets for getting linen just right. The laundress, labor personified. For many women, laundry was not just a chore, it was their livelihood. The professional laundress, often working class, sometimes widowed or unmarried, took in other people's wash. From small flats or shared yards, she boiled, scrubbed, wrung, and pressed. Her hands were always raw, her back always bent. She was paid per piece, a penny for a shirt, 2 for sheets, ironing cost extra. Laundresses worked from early morning until dark. Clothes were collected on Saturday, washed Monday, returned Wednesday. Some took pride in their work, starching collars to perfection, folding with military precision. Others were exhausted, exploited, and invisible. Still, their labor kept cities clothed in decency. The fire and the ironing was a delicate art. Flat irons, solid metal blocks, were heated on stoves or open fires. Because they cooled quickly, most households had 2 or 3 irons in rotation, one heating, one in use, one cooling. Some irons were hollow and filled with hot coals, others had detachable plates. The danger was real. Scorch marks, burns, ruined garments. Laundresses used layers of cloth, sprinkling water or starch as they pressed. They memorized the shape of each sleeve, the pleat of each petticoat. To iron well was to elevate the ordinary. Class and cleanliness. In Victorian England, cleanliness was next to godliness. White linen became a status symbol, not because it was worn, but because it was maintained. Only the wealthy could afford frequent laundering. Middle-class women prided themselves on spotless households. Servants, often a scullery maid or housemaid, handled the wash. But the lady of the house inspected everything. Laundry rooms grew in complexity. Some had drying cabinets, ventilation systems, and soap safes. Reformers believed a good wash could cleanse the soul. Enter the washing machine. By the late 1800s, inventors tinkered with new devices. Crank-operated drum washers, rotating basins, steam-driven machines. For the poor, options were fewer. Shared yards, cold water, communal tubs. Charity laundries sprang up, teaching poor women moral discipline through laundry work. Still crude, still labor-intensive, but the seeds of automation were sown. These early machines were expensive, noisy, and prone to breaking. But for those who could afford them, they marked a turning point. Laundry was no longer entirely by hand. Progress, however slow, had entered the washroom. The symphony of steam. The Victorian laundry was a world of sound and scent. The hiss of boiling water, the rhythmic turn of the mangle, the slap of wet fabric, the scent of lye and lavender, of starch and soot, and beneath it all, the pulse of effort. Monday was not just laundry day, it was a reckoning, a reset. To clean the clothes was to prepare for the week ahead, a ritual as sacred as Sunday supper. Closing the chapter. The Victorian era turned laundry into labor. It was grueling, repetitive, and invisible. Yet within those wash houses and back kitchens lay resilience. A quiet pride. Women carried families on their backs and laundry in their arms. In the next chapter, we journey west to the prairie homesteads of pioneer women, where laundry was done beside open flames under open skies. But for now, rest, and imagine the warmth of pressed cotton, the hiss of an iron, the quiet dignity of work well done. Chapter 5. American Frontier and Pioneer Women. whistles across the open plains. A kettle simmers over a wood fire. In the distance, prairie grass sways like waves on an endless ocean. On the American frontier, laundry was not just a chore, it was survival. With no plumbing, no electricity, and no neighborhood wash house, pioneer women did it all. And they did it in the face of weather, war, and wilderness. This was laundry under the sky. Prairie chores and Monday rituals. For pioneer families, Monday was laundry day. Always. Sunday was for church. Monday for soap and steam. Water was drawn from wells or hauled in buckets from creeks. Firewood was chopped and carried. A large cast iron kettle was placed over a fire pit, and water was brought to a boil. Soap, often homemade, was shaved or crumbled into the boiling water. The clothes were sorted, whites, colors, heavy fabrics, delicates. Garments were stirred with a paddle or stick, left to simmer, then pulled out and scrubbed on a washboard, a ridged plank set into a wash tub. Knees ached, hands froze or burned depending on the season. There were no shortcuts, no machines, just rhythm and repetition. And through it all, children ran about, chickens clucked nearby, and the wind never stopped. The soap they made. Soap was precious. Store-bought varieties were rare luxuries. Most families made their own lye soap from leftover cooking fat, rainwater, and ashes collected from the hearth. A wooden barrel served as the leaching vessel. Ashes were packed in tightly, water poured over the top, and a slow chemical reaction created lye, a harsh, caustic liquid. When mixed with hot fat, it produced a thick, gritty substance. Soap. The smell. Sharp. Acrid. But it cleaned. Once cooled and hardened, the soap was cut into blocks and stored for future wash days. The same soap used to wash clothes was often used for dishes, floors, and even bodies. Tools of the trade. Cast iron wash kettle, the heart of frontier laundry. Washboard. Simple, durable, essential. Clothesline. Strung between fence posts, trees, or nails on the cabin. Clothespins. Whittled from wood or bought in bundles when available. Some women used corrugated metal, rocks, or wooden paddles to scrub. Drying depended on weather. A sudden rainstorm could undo hours of work. In winter, laundry sometimes froze on the line. Garments were brought in stiff as boards and laid near the hearth to thaw and dry. The role of the pioneer woman laundry was one of many chores for frontier women. They baked, gardened, preserved food, raised children, and mended clothing, all before the first button was ever scrubbed. Laundry was done not out of luxury, but necessity. A child's one Sunday shirt had to be cleaned. A husband's work pants patched and scrubbed. Neighbors sometimes helped each other. A community effort was born. Still, laundry remained a quiet task. Done early, done late, done even while snow fell or dust storms howled. Women developed a sixth sense. Which way the wind would blow, whether the soap would hold, how to spot a stain before it set. Their knowledge was practical, their strength unseen. Diaries, letters, and first-person accounts. Much of what we know about frontier laundry comes from the women who lived it. In diaries and letters, they wrote about wash day with weary pride. I boiled the clothes in the kettle and beat them on the stones by the creek. It took all day, and still my hands are raw. The soap is gone. I shall have to render more fat. These voices remind us that the frontier was not just about building cabins and tilling land. It was about tending, cleaning, preserving, and laundry was central to that labor. The sound of the prairie wash. Imagine imagine the steady stir of a paddle in boiling water, the scrape of cloth against board, the snap of sheets in the wind, no hum of a dryer, no beep of a timer, just nature and necessity. The pioneer wash was harsh, but it was honest. Closing the chapter. On the frontier, laundry was elemental. Water, fire, cloth, ash. It was physical, spiritual, woven into survival itself. No frills, no flourishes. Just the quiet dignity of a woman bent over a wash tub, her breath visible in the morning cold. In our next chapter, we enter the resilient homes of Depression-era families, where thrift and rhythm define the wash. But for now, let the prairie wind carry you to rest. Sleep well. Chapter 6. The Depression-era wash. Routine and resourcefulness. The 1930s brought hardship to nearly every home. The Great Depression wasn't just an economic crisis, it was a test of endurance, patience, and domestic resilience. In kitchens, on porches, in alleys behind tenements, families carried on. Laundry, like everything else, adapted. Wash day returns. During the Depression, Monday was still wash day, but with an added weight. Every item mattered. Every scrap of soap was saved. Every gallon of water reused. Most families couldn't afford electric machines. If a wringer washer did exist, it was shared, bartered for, or used sparingly to save on power. Instead, galvanized tubs were filled. Water was boiled on stoves. Soap slivers were stitched into cloth bags, shaken into suds. Washing began early in the morning. Shirts were soaked, scrubbed on washboards, then wrung out by hand or pushed through a manual wringer. Children often helped. One child fetched water, another turned the wringer, a third held the clothesline. There was no room for waste. Rinse water became mop water, soap became patch cleaner, holes were sewn, buttons salvaged, clothes were made to last, and last they did. Soap, starch, and scraps. Depression-era homes stretched everything. Soap was often homemade, rendered from leftover fat and lye. Women mixed in borax or washing soda when they could afford it. Starch was made from flour or cornstarch, mixed with water, boiled until thick, then brushed onto collars and cuffs. Even the smallest cloth was washed, folded and saved. Worn-out garments became cleaning rags or were quilted into blankets. Children's clothes were made from flour sacks. Some companies even printed floral patterns on sacks to meet this new demand. The laundry line became a symbol of perseverance, of ingenuity. The weekly rhythm. There was comfort in the routine. Wash Monday, iron Tuesday, mend Wednesday. Each task anchored the week. In a time of chaos, laundry offered control. Folding warm clothes gave a sense of purpose. Ironing, a sense of pride. A wrinkled shirt could be pressed back to dignity. A clean sheet gave a restless sleeper peace. Even when the cupboards were bare, the laundry was done. The city versus the country. In rural America, laundry was still done by hand. Water came from wells, clothes dried on long lines stretched between barns. In cities, shared yards or rooftops held rows of laundry. Tenement families used community tubs or bathed clothes in bathtubs. Some women took in washing to make ends meet. $1 here, 50 cents there. A few lucky neighborhoods had coin-operated laundromats, new inventions in the 1930s. But most couldn't afford them. Laundry remained in the home, in the hands, in the heart. Memory and meaning. Ask anyone who lived through the Depression, and they'll tell you, laundry meant more than just clean clothes. It was stability. It was hope. It was mothers who never let the sheets yellow, even when the roof leaked. It was grandmothers who folded towels with perfect edges, even when arthritis flared. It was pride, preserved preserved through fabric. The echo of effort. The sounds of Depression-era laundry were subtle. The creak of a wringer, the slap of a wet shirt on the washboard, the rustle of flour sack dresses on a breezy line. No electric buzz, just patience. Evenings ended with clothes folded into neat stacks, baskets placed by the bed. The smell of starch and sun lingered in the air. Closing the chapter. In the Great Depression, laundry wasn't just a chore. It was a ritual of resilience. The wash line was a banner of strength, a quiet rebellion against despair. Through boiling tubs and hand-wrung shirts, people said, "We are still here, we are still clean, we still care." In the final chapter, we'll reflect on the meaning behind all this motion, the sacredness of laundry across the ages. But for now, picture a backyard at dusk, shirts swaying like flags of endurance. Sleep well. Final chapter, closing thoughts. The sacred chore. From the treading feet of Roman falloons to the wrung hands of Depression-era mothers, we have followed a thread, soft, strong, and soaked in care. Laundry, a word so simple, a task so repetitive, yet woven into it is the story of humanity. Not grand battles or royal decrees, but the hush of fabric rinsed in river water, the hiss of steam, the slow folding of a shirt still warm from the line. These are the sounds and signs of civilization. Across time, across cultures, every culture washed, every generation bent over fabric. Whether with soap or clay, boiling or beating, laundry was a unifier. It was a domestic constant, and in its execution we see ourselves. We see ancient Egyptians honoring linen as sacred, medieval women kneeling at the lavoir, sharing gossip with scrubbed hands, Tudor laundresses boiling shirts in copper pots, Victorian laborers wringing dignity from a mangle, pioneer mothers stirring laundry beside prairie fires, Depression-era families folding hope into each towel. So much has changed, and yet so much remains the same. What laundry really is laundry is more than clean fabric. It is preservation, renewal, proof that someone, somewhere, cared enough to begin again. Each garment touched by water is reborn. Each sock, shirt, and sheet re-enters the world with new purpose. The act is humble, but its message, immense. It says, "You matter, you're worth the work." A living history. Laundry has always been history's quiet witness. Through fabric, we trace trade, invention, gender roles, social class, and personal pride. In stains, we find meals eaten, work done, children held. In soap scents and drying times, we glimpse eras gone by. And in every wash day memory, every tale told over a washboard or shared through generations, we feel a connection. Final soundscape. Let this last moment linger with simple sounds. The drip of rinse water, the flap of a sheet, a low wind, the rhythmic squeak of a wringer, the hush of folding. Let these sounds replace the day's noise. Let them soothe. A sacred chore. Laundry is mundane, yes, but within it lives reverence. It is service, it is memory, it is love in action. You may never look at your washer the same way again, or the rhythm of your dryer, or the quiet of folding a shirt. These aren't just chores, they are echoes. Thank you for walking this gentle path through history. May your sheets always be soft, your water warm, and your burdens a little lighter. Sleep well.